Hi, and welcome to my talk. Today we're going to be talking about developing for accessibility. These are steps to improving the accessibility of your Qt Quick application. My name is Cosmin Pancratov. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft, and yeah, let's jump straight into it. So a quick overview of what this talk will be about. I'm going to walk you through a demo sample app that I wrote. This is basically a sample wizard UI where the user has to go through 3 pages, and each page makes them has them select some options or configure an account, that sort of UI. And there's a next and back button, there's a confirmation dialog, and there's a few checkboxes for selecting options. Then we're going to be talking about basically accessibility basics for desktop apps. So, what are the sort of minimum criteria your app should fulfill? Among those will be the special topics of keyboard navigation and screen reader, basically setting up roles and labels for your for screen reader readiness. And then I'm going to be talking about some advanced topics like announcing the page title on each wizard. So, quick walkthrough of what's happening here. The demo app is a simple, there's a one window, primary window, and it has a loader element in it. And what it does is it loads, it asynchronously loads each of these 3 pages based on when the user hits next page or previous page. And this is what the pages look like. I'm actually going to run you through it right now. So starting over here in Qt Creator, let's give it a quick run just to show you what's happening. So I'm going to go ahead, hit click and hit run and build it. So this is the first window. There's a title, there's a logo image placeholder here, there's a text with some hyperlinks in it at the bottom, and then there's a start button. So once I click the start button, that will take me to the next page. Here you have another title, there's 3 checkboxes, and then there's a back and the next button. And disclaimer, this is not a very fancy UI. This is purely for proving some capabilities of Qt and accessibility. So if I hit the next button here, this will prompt this will show a modal dialog here asking me if I still want to install because I didn't check the third checkbox. So I'm going to hit continue here, and this will take me to the last page, which just confirms that we're all set. There's a subtitle here explaining the what's going to happen here, and then there's a finish button. So clicking finish just exits out of the app. So that's pretty much it. So we're going to be walking through making the accessibility of this app work. So about this code, this is, like I said, not production UI, it's only for demo purposes. The techniques I'm going to be showing work both on Windows and Mac OS. The demos are, as you might have noticed, are being run on a Windows machine. These will work on Mac OS as well, unless otherwise noticed, and there will be very few exceptions there. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about what makes your app accessible. So at a minimum, these are some basics you do want to fulfill. So first of all, there's keyboard navigation. You want your users to be able to navigate and interact with the controls in your app using just the keyboard. So, for example, for manual dexterity, users who have issues with manual dexterity or motor issues, users with low vision acuity, for them, the mouse is not really useful, so they need to be able to use your app using keyboard. Then the second thing that's super important here is having your screen reader roles and labels correctly set up. So screen readers are the main way by which visually impaired users and low vision users the main way by which they will interact with your application. So it's super important to set roles and labels and other accessibility annotations that are supported by the APIs to set them correctly such that the screen reader can accurately describe the UI to your users, and that the users in turn can perform the actions using the screen reader keys and controls. And the third topic here that I'd like to mention, but we're not going to cover in this talk, is color contrast. So color contrast, your app needs to have proper color contrast so that users with challenged color vision or colorblind users are able to see your app and distinguish the controls and be able to interact with them. It's very at a minimum, your app should adapt the color scheme set in the user's OS theme preferences. So your app should support the dark mode, and it should support, even more important actually, it should support high contrast modes. So we're not going to cover this in this talk. There's ample documentation out there. There's tools for comparing the contrast between two colors. There's tools for filtering, basically applying a filter to the screen to see what it would look like from the perspective of a person with challenged color vision. So we're not going to approach that in this talk. So let's go ahead and jump in straight ahead to keyboard navigation. So keyboard navigation, if we're to have a look at the first page here in the UI, there's basically a title, and the actual keyboard interactable controls here are the 3 hyperlinks in the text and the button. So when I press tab, I should be able to cycle through application, terms of service, privacy agreement, these 3 hyperlinks, and then the last tab should take me to the start button. And then when I press enter, the start button should execute its action. So here's sort of and this is not a comprehensive list by any means. This is just what we're going to do for this app. So this is the desired behavior. So any actionable control has to be a tab stop. So you need to be able to focus that control by pressing tab, and you need to cycle through the controls by pressing tab, or cycle back by pressing shift tab, which is basically back tab. Buttons have to be able to be activated by pressing enter or return, and checkboxes have to be able to be toggled by pressing space. Furthermore, the escape key should exit out of the current context. So if you have a modal dialog or an overlapping pane on top of your UI, or a flyout that can be light dismissed, or like has a cancel option or a reject option, the escape key should be the shortcut for that. So I'd like to point out some missing behavior right now, and this is not something we'll approach in this talk. Just know that we'll sort of work our way around. I mean, we'll just basically skip it. So links inside text elements in Qt Quick right now don't actually work. Tabbing doesn't work, and the screen readers don't announce the links. The root cause here is because links inside a text element aren't actually standalone controls by themselves. So they're not children UI nodes of the text element. They're not in the UI tree, so there's no way for them to receive focus, unless text had a way to accept multiple tabs and then subcontrol, basically act like a focus scope, but it doesn't. So, and there's also no way to specify accessible properties for them. This is notably Qt bug 67878. And there's a discussion there on the bug that I left, which is there's a workaround possible by swapping text with TextEdit and parsing out the positions of the anchors using Qtext document, text row, and text layout. And yeah, see the notes in the bug for further discussion there. So let's jump straight into it. Let's see what the app looks like after I apply all the keyboard navigation fixes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump here into the first one. So what we got here is, I'm gonna run it real quick. Okay, getting there. Right. So in the first window here, like I said, the links won't work, so I expect only one tab here. So when I press tab, it will jump straight to the start button as expected. And I'm going to press enter, and then that moves me to the next page. And here, again, I can keep pressing tab, 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 and it will cycle through the elements. Shift tab will also work. And we'll verify that it does so. Then pressing space should check or uncheck these boxes. So, and it does. I'm pressing space right now. And then pressing enter on the next button here should bring up the modal dialog. The continue button is focused by default, and I'm just going to hit enter again, and now we're on the last page. So if I hit next tab here, it's going to land on the finish button. So these are some simple fixes I did here. Basically, the button I use in all of the windows is this standard button control, and it's just a Qt Quick Controls 2 button. Fortunately, its active focus on tab functionality is already set by default, so there was nothing we had to do here. The more interesting thing here is, so like I said, links don't work. So Shift and Tab worked with the back tab as well. What we did have to do is add the keys on return press and keys on enter press here to make it behave the same as if clicking on the button. So that activates the button. Yeah. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to test here is if the modal dialog, if the escape key exits the current context. So I'm going to hit escape right now, and it does. So there's nothing we had to do there. Nothing special we had to do there. Okay, so sounds like keyboard navigation is pretty much working with the addition of these keys on return press statements. So let's go back here and talk for a little bit about screen reader basics and the accessibility tree. So the accessibility tree can basically be described as it's a subset of what's in your QML file. So the QML is basically, it's a tree by itself, right? The QML file is a tree, and every item in the tree, if it's visible or not, is an item in the UI tree. Now, the accessibility tree maps to that. When I say it's a subset, it's because, so in your window you could have, so your window is the root node, and then there's this text element here, then there's a logo placeholder, and then which is basically a rectangle with a text inside it. So that would be, the rectangle is a direct child of the window, and then the text logo is direct child of rectangle, and then this text right here is, again, child of the root node, and then the start button. So the way the UI tree differs is I don't actually want to expose all of that to screen readers. So all I wanted to do for the logo image here, for example, I wanted that to just be the top level rectangle. I call that image, and I gave it the accessible name of welcome logo. So what you end up doing generally is you go through your QML code and you annotate the nodes you want to see surfaced in the accessibility tree using the properties in the accessible namespace, or aka the accessible attached properties. And on Windows, you can inspect what this tree looks like by running the inspect tool from the Windows SDK. That's what I have in the screenshot here. And on Mac OS, you can do the same thing with the accessibility inspector. So talking about QML accessibility properties, typically these are the properties that are needed in your QML. So for every element or control you actually want to announce, want the screen reader to announce, you always need to set the accessible role and accessible name values. Not setting those in general will make the node not appear, not be announced. If you set the role but forget to set the name, then the element will be announced, but again there will be no name for it, and that generally just confuses users. The next one that's important here is accessible focusable. So please, I'll talk about it in the advanced fixes section in a minute. But what we can do is we can use this to give initial screen reader, so narrator and voiceover focus to a certain element in the page. So what we're going to do in the next section here is I'm going to use that initial focus to focus on the page heading text element, and that makes screen readers read that heading, which is useful when switching pages. Then there's actions you need to set up. So the way users interact with the screen reader is they send commands like to say invoke this button or toggle this button. And those can be any sort of key combinations that whatever the screen reader app has set up. What those translate at the OS level into is the screen reader app makes an API call through the automation APIs, makes a call to our app, and those calls get translated at the Qt platform abstraction level. They get translated into Q accessible signals. So basically what you're doing here is in your QML you need to specify some handler for these signals. So buttons specifically need onPress action and checkboxes need onToggle action. And if you look at documentation, there's a full list of actions there that you need to support. Then there's state flags. So state flags are used to for the screen reader to indicate the current selection or unselection state for of your controls and announce when that state changes. So in the example of checkboxes, it has to be set to checkable, and then it also has to announce whether it's checked or unchecked. So when user toggles it, the screen reader will announce checked or unchecked. The same goes for elements that can be expandable, so like tree, item, rows, or generally just any custom control that reveals or hides information. So they have to announce themselves as expandable and their expanded collapsed state. So let's go ahead and have a quick look at what happens when I add all the required properties here to our UI. Actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and run it real quick and see what it looks like without them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control Windows Enter, and that's the shortcut to open Narrator on Windows here.
Start standard button.qml at accessibility demo.
It's going to jump straight into reading the Qt Creator app. So I'm going to run our app.
Accessibility demo window, scan.
Okay, so we're here, and since I don't have any annotation on the title or any of these, all it knows is to read this window. And it can read the title bar, and then it knows about the button, because Qt Quick controls, and especially buttons, they already have the proper annotation. So it only knows about the button. Now if I press Enter or Space or Return to activate it, it's not going to work because I didn't set the accessible on press action. So that's something we need to fix. So I'm going to go ahead and exit Narrator now.
Exiting Narrator.
And I'm going to close the app real quick and apply the changes for accessibility. So as you can see here in my standard button control, I added the accessible on press action. Then in my standard control that I use on every page to show the title, I added the role of static text and the name, which is just the title of the text that I'm showing, and I set Focusable to true. Same thing here in the modal dialog. There were a few texts there, so the title text in the modal dialog, I set the role, name, and Focusable here as well. The body of the dialog, role, name, Focusable, and I think that's about it. And of course, the same thing for the third page here, where I set the accessible role. Optionally, on the first page, where you'd have the logo, you can basically announce that information to your visually impaired users by marking the logo as accessible role as graphic, and then just give it an alt text name here. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Again, I'm going to start Narrator real quick.
Start first.
And I can press Control to mute what it's saying right now, so because I don't want to hear the Qt Creator pronunciation. So it's going to start the app real quick.
Accessibility demo window, start button.
So it focuses directly on the start button because that's the one that I gave initial focus to. But I'm going to cycle through the other controls. So I added the annotation here for the title as well, so it's going to pronounce that as well.
Welcome to the talk.
And then if I press the down arrow or up down arrows, this will navigate through the UI.
Welcome logo, image. This setup will guide you through installing the application and creating your account. By clicking Start, you agree to our terms of service and privacy agreement.
Okay, that worked as well.
Start
and then the Start button here. So if I press Enter here,
Next button.
This will take me to the next page again. Again, it lands on the first button and has focus. So if I want to read the page, I have to go up.
Choose your install option. Install application checkbox checked.
So this is a checkbox checked, and if I press a space, it's going to toggle it.
Unchecked, checked. Copy my files checkbox checked. Unchecked, checked. Back,
And then if I
next.
hit
But
next, it's going
continue,
to...
button. An account is required to use all the features of the application. Without one, the application will run in offline.
Now, it's worth mentioning here that the dialog got read automatically. I think that's a specific feature of Narrator on Windows. I think for other screen readers, you need to specifically focus on the text and the dialogue to make it get read out. Anyway, I'm going to hit continue here, and this lands me on the last page. Now, because I didn't set any initial focus on this page, you can see the narrator focus cursor here is just somewhere in the middle of nowhere, so nothing got automatically read out. But if I press the down or up arrow keys, it's going to start from the
Accessibility demo window.
From the top of the UI tree. So it starts with the window, then it's going to read the title bar, and then finally lands on the title.
Mac, you're all set. You can now use all the features of Finish button.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close
Exiting Narrator
now and close the app. So what we'd like to do in the next section here is an advanced adjustment to this. So it would be really it would be really useful if when navigating in between pages, the screen reader actually read the title of the new page, such that users could tell that we switch pages. Otherwise, there's no indication that the activating the next button or the start button actually ended up switching a page. So disclaimer, this is not an exact science, as in the behavior sort of varies across screen reader apps, but it generally works across Narrator on Windows and VoiceOver on Mac, and I think even with other apps. So generally what we can do is to make the screen reader read the title on a particular control, we can focus the force active focus on that element, assuming it has, provided it has the accessible focusable text, property set on it. An alternative on Windows only is to take advantage of the introduction in Qt 5.15.2 of the UI raise notification event implementation, which is it's the Windows UI automation API event that apps can fire to get Narrator or any screen reader on Windows for that matter to read out to just announce a text that all the condition, the only precondition there is it has to be tied to an accessible element in the window, but other than that it can simply announce any text. So the way that works in Qt is you use a QAccessible value changed event, and I included this link here where there's an in-depth discussion of these techniques and what other ways there is to make screen readers read the title. So in the page title using initial focus option, basically I just included a short snippet here. So all I have to do is make sure the header has accessible focusable set to true, and then when the page loads in the loader element, using keying off the component on completed signal here, I can say header force active focus. This is the code, the snippet for the alternative to that. So what you do here, if you want to use QAccessible value changed event, is you have to manually fire the event in C++. So there's no way to do it from QML. So what you do is you assemble it here in C++, you set the text, and then you call it, you make it a QInvocable, and then you simply call it from QML. So it's here basically I set it to a random class called app model. So app model announce text header and then header.text. Interesting thing here is if it doesn't work, you want to qdebug the interface and see if there's any listener hooked in or anything like that, because if you do it too early at app startup, it might be the case that screen readers aren't actually listening. So let's go ahead and demo how that worked out real quick. So I'm going to start with the checking out here. I'm going to go ahead and start Narrator.
Start first.
So as soon as I start the app, I expect it to read the title on the first page, and then as I cycle through pages, I expect it to read the subsequent titles. So let's go ahead and do that.
Accessibility demo window. Welcome to the talk.
Hooray, it worked. So it read the title automatically. And now if I hit the down arrow, I can go through the other
Welcome
elements.
logo. This setup will guide you through installing the application. Start button.
So now if I hit start, I expect it to read the next title and so forth.
Choose your install options. Install application checkbox checked. Copy my files checkbox checked. Setup account checkbox unchecked.
It's worth noting here that I'm hitting the down arrow.
Copy my files check. Setup account checkbox.
Screen. Okay, and if I hit next here, it should land on the last page.
Install without setting up an no next item. Continue button. You're all set.
Again, and announce the text on the title on the final page. So that works.
Finish. First, exiting narrator.
Alright, so I guess that kind of wraps it up. So we went through adding accessible annotations and making the screen reader read the title so that it's a coherent experience to the users. Thanks everybody for joining, and let me know if you have any questions.